With all of the Antifa and Black Lives Matter riots sweeping our cities from sea to shining sea, and COVID shutting down all of our major cities and businesses, big tech censorship has kind of become an afterthought in recent months. But it really shouldn't be, because we have this report now from Breitbart, Google and Twitter Insider. Algorithms could censor the entire Trump movement simultaneously. And we know that these tech companies all work together and that they all silence pretty much only people on the right. There are a few instances of people on the left getting banned, but almost all of it, probably about 90% of it, goes towards the right. And we know from an interview that Jack Dorsey gave with the Huffington Post that the big tech companies definitely do collaborate on what their methods of censorship are going to be. So we all know that these people come together. They've admitted that they come together and they sort these things out. That is a very, very dangerous situation, especially with a presidential election coming up, because we already know what their bias is. That's not even in question anymore. But the power that they have to shut down the conversation leading right up to a presidential election, whether they can choose what news gets shared, what conversations are had, they can absolutely remove Trump supporters from the public square. And that is extremely, extremely dangerous. So we have this article from Breitbart here. An upcoming bombshell book from Breitbart News investigative reporter Alum Bakari interviews a source that worked at both Google and Twitter and who exposes how the AI algorithms used by big tech platforms are being trained to target conservatives. We already know that these companies have been targeting conservatives. I mean, we've seen all of the Project Veritas undercover sting videos where they'll say that they just banned somebody just for wearing a MAGA hat. You see this one woman says, if I see a MAGA hat, ban. Just outright. And they went undercover with Twitter as well and found out about shadow banning. So that's another methodology that they use. So they don't necessarily ban you. So with shadow banning, you sit there and you post and you see, you think everything's normal, but you sit there scratching your head wondering why nobody's interacting with your posts. Well, that's because nobody sees it, because it gets algorithmically buried under everything else. And so while it's posted, it doesn't show up on anybody's feeds. Very, very sneaky. And for a long time, they actually tried to say that, oh, no, we don't shadow ban. We don't do this. But we have Project Veritas going undercover with Twitter employees, talking about how they absolutely do that. And then recently, there was something with that whole Twitter hack that happened. When they hacked Twitter and they hacked Joe Biden's account, and they try to make it out that there's just this Bitcoin scam when it seemed really more like it was a test hack by likely China just to show that they can do that. And they were able to get a screenshot of the control panel for Twitter, and it absolutely had buttons for like shadow banning and different things that they said didn't exist. So, we know that these big tech companies just lie constantly. They've lied to our government. They have sat there under oath in congressional hearings and straight up said that no, they don't make anything based on excuse me, they don't make any censorship based on political affiliations. But when the wind blows one direction, we know that they're lying to us. When that weather vane points one direction, we know what direction the wind blows. So to tell us that they don't is really just them protecting themselves and saying, screw you, you can't do anything, we're going to keep doing it anyways. The arrogance, the sense of untouchability with these big tech companies is absolutely insane. I mean, during the Obama administration, big tech cozied up to the Obama administration like nothing we had ever seen before. The Google executives alone visited the White House hundreds of times, more than once a week on average, I believe. And then, of course, a lot of people in the Obama cabinet then were able to go out to Silicon Valley and get these cushy jobs. And then we wonder why they were infected with this. And it's actually a multifaceted issue, because when big tech started out, it seemed to be very libertarian in nature, but it has become increasingly leftist. Especially, I think part of it is because they base their operations in the San Francisco area, the San Francisco Bay Area, where the ideology just creeps into it just from the region that they're in. But also, we saw in 2016, the media, just the mainstream media, not the social media, just straight up bullied a lot of these big tech companies into submission, basically making them, making them scream uncle, essentially. It's Facebook especially. All of the articles that came out about how Facebook made Trump win the election, all these people are anti-Trump, and then they felt a sense of responsibility for Trump winning. Well, they don't really face a sense of responsibility for Trump winning. It's really just people were spreading ideas and they didn't censor them, so they got the blame. So now the response is, well, this time around we're going to censor everybody. We're going to cut off free speech for America. And I'm so tired of a lot of the conservatives. Like, I remember, back when I used to listen to Ben Shapiro. I kind of can't stand Ben Shapiro anymore. I mean, he's not wrong on it. It's not like he's wrong on everything. But he would talk about how he didn't want any kind of tech intervention because they're a private company, and what are you going to do? You're going to have the government come in and you're going to regulate private company? Well, what do we're just going to instead roll over and let these big tech companies censor everything we say. That's a better option because that's freedom. It's a private company. Sorry, I know my Ben Shapiro is probably a pretty annoying there, but that's kind of how he sounds. So yeah, he was always talking about they're a private company, so they can do what they want. Yes, but when you have another thing that he said was that if we want an alternative, just build one and it'll be more successful. But no, when you have a company that has a monopolistic grip or an oligopolistic grip, because it's a handful of tech companies, have an oligopolistic grip on an entire market, they have they have protections because they have lobbyists that are able to constrict any new companies. They have multi-billion-dollar government federal contracts. You can't really expect somebody to come from the ground up, especially when every time a alt-tech company does start to come up, they get absolutely blasted by the media, not only the media, but places like the ADL. Like BitChute is starting to get a little bit more prominent. But if you search, you'll never see BitChute videos come up in Google searches. And the ADL came out saying that, it's just a cesspool of hate and things like that. So anytime an alt-tech company comes up to actually try to compete with these companies, there is a concerted effort between these tech companies, the media, and these leftist organizations to do everything that they can to defame it so it never has a chance to actually take off. So we can't rely on the old narrative of, well, it's a private company. They've replaced the public square. It is now where everybody talks. So they do need to adhere to They do need to adhere to First Amendment practices and First Amendment principles. And we need to set that into legislation, obviously with Section 230 reform, which I've talked about numerous times on here, so I'm not going to get into again. So anyways, let's get back to this article. The book, #deleted, Big Tech's Battle to Erase the Trump Movement and Steal the Election, will be published by Center Street on September 22nd and is currently available for pre-order. Sources close to Google and other tech giants say the book will shake the foundations of Silicon Valley. While I hope that's true, I'm not a big fan of sources say. We just saw that with the whole Atlantic hit piece on Donald Trump, where it was all anonymous sources. So I'm not a huge fan of taking the word of anonymous sources, so I will take that with a grain of salt, but I do hope that it actually will move the needle. I don't know that it's going to shake the foundations of Silicon Valley. They're so powerful, I'm not sure that a book coming out is really going to be able to shake their foundations, especially with the arrogance that they seem to show going into Congress and straight up lying with no fear of repercussions. Honestly, most of these big tech CEOs should probably be charged with perjury because there's pretty easy proof that they're lying when they say that they don't censor based on political affiliation. So one former Twitter and Google employee who spent over a decade working in big tech companies spoke to Bakari about the quality ranking that major tech companies assign their users. This secret score, which has eerie similarities to China's social credit system, is used by tech platforms to determine whether their users are a source of value for the company or whether they are abusive and a detriment to other users. So yeah, this is almost like that episode of Black Mirror, which I think came out kind of around the same time we started learning about China's social credit system, which is an extremely terrifying idea that we could be, authoritarianly graded and from one perspective be graded on our standing in society based on whether we adhere to propaganda or not. I know I would be in the negatives on that social credit system. So it's used by big. Okay, and this is also interesting to determine whether their users are a source of value to the company. Now that's an eerie way of putting it, because we tend to think of social media platforms as places where we can express ourselves, not where we are basically value mines for the company, where whether what we post gives the company value. And I'm assuming they're talking about monetary value, stock value. And I think a lot of them, again, that whole idea of value means they're terrified of having a hit piece out on them because the left-wing media says that, oh, this tech platform is a right-wing haven or something like that. And so they're going to then view right-wing people as being adversely detracting from the value of the company. And that is a very, very scary proposition, that we, as the users of the websites and of the platforms, are viewed as commodities, and that they are not a commodity for us to use. It's a complete inversion of how the dynamic really should play out. And whether they are, quote, abusive or detriment to other users. That's the whole idea, though, is you can't be a detriment to other users if those people just block you or unfollow you. As long as people have the ability to block you or unfollow you, then you're good to go. So the source reveals how the term abusive, which previously only applied to non-political behaviors like spamming and the posting of obscene content, has been turned into a tool to train AI algorithms to censor the right. And if Jack Dorsey, like I said, is on record talking about how these different tech companies, they collaborate and they collude on what they're going to do next. Remember when Alex Jones got banned? It was like he got banned from everything in one day. Same with Gavin McInnes and Milo Yiannopoulos. In fact, Gavin McInnes got so banned that I tried to share one of his... I tried to just mention Censored.tv in a messaging thing. I told, Gavin McInnes is now on Censored.tv. And it wouldn't let me send the message. It said I was sending abusive content. I couldn't even name his website that was off the platform on Facebook Messenger. That's pretty insane. And we saw even just recently, we've seen new elements of censorship where, especially with Google search algorithms, on August 30th, if you typed in Black Lives Matter it would fill out with a whole bunch of things like a communist group, or it would have a mixture of positive and negative feedback. The very next day, if you searched it, if you typed BLM it just filled out BLM Israel. And that was the only option. And even this site right here, Breitbart, recently, they got shadow banned off of Google searches, the Google search engine. Their, what was it? Their returns, like if you Googled articles, their amount of Google returns decreased by 99.7%, almost completely wiped them off of Google. They are trying to control the narratives, and they are trying to control our minds. This is mind control at the end of the day. This is social engineering, social programming. So these algorithms are being taught by big tech's most anti-Trump employees, which is most of their employees. If we've seen the Project Veritas videos. We've heard them talk about how the culture at these companies are extremely anti-Trump. So these algorithms are being taught by big tech's most anti-Trump employees that abusive behavior includes things like hate speech, misinformation, the posting of conspiracy theories, and other behaviors subject to highly political definitions. Of course, it all leans one direction. So hate speech is basically anything that counteracts the narrative. Misinformation, of course, you talk about their fact checkers, their independent fact checkers. They're all left-wing ideologues. So one of Twitter's independent fact checkers was, he was seen posting things about how Trump was literally Hitler. How are you going to get an unbiased return on that? You're not. And then conspiracy theories as well. So, and also with misinformation, because I mentioned that Atlantic article, the Atlantic article about Trump disparaging military people. Haven't seen any claims of misinformation or partly false information from that. but it was completely fake. We didn't see any kind of censorship on the World Health Organization, but we saw plenty on doctors who were touting the drug not to be named on YouTube. Starts with an H and has a Q. But let's see. Oh yeah, and then also banning all the QAnon accounts because of the conspiracy theories. So, but they never did anything to ban the whole Russian collusion conspiracy theory, which turned out to be absolutely false. So, like I said, when the weather vane is always pointing one direction, we know what direction the wind blows. And so they're outright lying when they say that this is, we're not political, and Mark Zuckerberg will get up there and say that, well, we don't want to be the arbiters of truth, while they're acting like the arbiters of truth. They say one thing and do something different, and what they do is so blatant and in our faces, and then they look at us and say, oh, we didn't do that. Oh, that was a mistake. Oh, yeah, that was an accident. Yeah, we didn't mean to ban that person. We didn't mean to censor that person. We fixed it now after they get called out on it. But it always happens, and they always use the same excuses over and over and over again. So these people need to go down. They really need to go down. And I think that they should probably be locked up and, barred from a computer for the rest of their lives. No, I mean, I'm kidding on that. But, they have lied and been insanely dishonest, and they have worked towards... and intentionally worked towards creating so much social strife and division in this country that there has to be some sort of accountability for that. There has to be something legally that can be done to punish these people for what they've done. It is borderline crimes against humanity. I mean, if freedom of speech, which is given to us by God, is inherent to our humanity and thus why it is enshrined in the Constitution, limiting that should really be viewed somewhere along the lines of a crime against humanity, being that free speech is intrinsic to us as humans. So the source also alleges that an account's quality score can be lowered simply by following or sharing material from other accounts considered abusive. So now, depending on, you can follow the wrong person and all of a sudden you'll never get, you never have a chance of growing an audience. That is insidious. Following and sharing from other accounts abusive, allowing the algorithms to censor. Okay, so that's what they're talking about here. So the source also alleges that the account's quality score can be lowered simply by following or sharing material from other accounts considered abusive, allowing the algorithms to censor entire networks of people at the same time. All it takes is a few keywords added into the algorithm and poof, we're gone. We're gone. This is, and I mean, it's gone to show that a lot of this tech censorship, it doesn't work. You ban somebody, you're not going to silence them. They're just going to find another outlet, and they're also going to it's going to spark interest. And you create these echo chambers as well. I mean, part of the reason why the left is so nutty and insane is they live in this Twitter echo chamber, because so many conservatives get banned off of Twitter, they don't get anything checking their perspectives. And it just becomes these people that talk back and forth, a game of telephone, where things get distorted with each pass. And next thing you know, they believe insane, crazy things. And it drives them mad. It gives them literal psychosis. So, the insider goes on to explain how these algorithms are being rolled out across multiple tech platforms and will result in the wholesale suppression of the Trump movement just in time for the election. And, I did an episode of Revved Up, episode 7. It was called Nuclear Information Warfare. Probably not one of my best videos. It was kind of funny, but it was all about big tech censorship. So if you want to go back and check that out, I have more information about what led us down that path. I got a little judgmental on a lot of the people that work for these companies, which I'm trying to avoid doing more and more as I grow into this YouTube thing. I've been doing this for I think like 5-6 months, something like that. But anyways, guys, that's the video. Go ahead and hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Ram Thorburn. Best thing you can do is share this video, get the word out, let people know what's going on. And also, if you're interested in contributing to the channel, there are links to my Subscribe Star, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. Anyways, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.